There are some calling Limbo the most unique and powerful game of 2010, but our spoiler-packed analysis proves the answer isn't quite so black and white. Plus, we visit with the team behind Monday Night Combat, and in our quote of the week, the podcast turns on one of its own. The date is August 5th, 2010. My name is Tim Spaeth. This is the GameCritics.com podcast. Episode 38, GameCritics.com podcast. I do believe introductions are in order. Let's begin, as we always do, with the man himself, our founding father, Chi Kong Lu. Hi, Chi.
Hey, what's up, Tim?
Chi, I believe you tweeted this past weekend that you were at a GameStop tagging men. What does that mean?
It's another one of those north-south things.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this is just purely gamer related. So, dude, man, you're kind of involved, man. You're a Dragon Quest fan too, so you should know better.
Yeah.
Right. This is the Guinness Book of, Dragon Quest holds the Guinness Book of World Record for some sort of ad hoc network tagging thing in Japan, where when you turn, it's sort of like that Nintendogs thing. You sort of go into a tagging mode. And you swap characters, and if the other character is holding a map, you get one of the treasure maps. So, obviously we're not in Japan, where like 1 in 2 people have played Dragon Quest, so it's much harder to find people to tag. And GameStop was so kind to hold an event, so headed over down to a local GameStop and proceeded to meet some awkward fellow gamers.
So what are the demographics like at a GameStop Dragon Quest tagging event? Were you like the oldest person, or were there...
But that was the most embarrassing part. I was definitely the oldest guy, and you can fill out your profile, right? And say, hey, hi, I'm Chi, from the USA, and then you put in like a title, right? So everyone's like, I think everyone came out 23 years old because no one bothered to put in their date of birth or something. But everyone's like, I'm a high school student. And then I'm like, I'm a father.
I was going to say, Chi was the only guy there who'd actually touched a real live woman.
I mean, it wasn't as embarrassing as 10-year-olds or 5-year-olds. I mean, but it seemed like they were mostly high school kids. And one guy was talking about how he called his father was going to go pick him up now and stuff like that. So.
And okay, so when you left the event, did you feel either better about yourself or a little ashamed, or no change?
In hindsight, no change. In hindsight, I should have probably been a little more vocal and a little more chatty. I was just, I don't know. I didn't think too much about it when I was there. I wasn't even sure how the feature really worked to some extent. So you go, when I went in there was like one guy sitting on the floor with his DS open, so obviously he was there for that. But then there were just kind of guys randomly scattered about, so I wasn't sure if no one was there or what. And as soon as I turned on my network, some guy's like, who's Chi, because my character's like, and I'm like, oh, that's me. So then and then everyone's like, oh, who's Justin and who's Mario and who's whatever. So that's like sort of the awkward introduction, and then people just sort of standing around waiting for other people to tag, and that's sort of it. I was there for like a half an hour and tagged like 11 people. I got a lot of good maps out of it, so that was pretty cool. Although these maps are as hard as hell, man. I mean, anything like above a level 3 is kicking my ass, and that's pretty surprising, actually. So,
well, I'm glad you survived to make it onto the podcast tonight. Let's continue the introductions. Also joining us, it's anti-abacus crusader Brad Gallaway. Hi,
Hey,
Brad.
Hey, good to be back this week.
That, of course, a reference to your vitriolic statement against abacus against abaci, I guess, would be the plural on Twitter today. So
I don't know that it was vitriolic. I think it was more surprising. I in person, in real life, don't really have any, mathematic experience using an abacus, and I was a little surprised it seems like everybody on Earth, except for me, like either had an abacus like at their disposal, like at their fingertips, or they actually have used one to do math. I mean, that blew me away. I had no idea.
That's bullshit. Who said they had an abacus?
We'll jump into the tweet stream, and like every single person there is like, "Oh yes, I'm really good at math, and I have an abacus." So, whatever.
Say,
Okay, sure, I'm the only one.
Don't knock the abaci. They can be pretty helpful.
It's true. That's true. All of my children have played with abaci. Brad. So let's continue along the way. Up next, it's horror geek Mike Bracken. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Tim. Hey, guys.
Mike, I offered you my World of Warcraft Cataclysm beta key, and you refused it.
I did. I didn't even hesitate to refuse it. So, yeah. I'm just so over WoW.
I ended up installing it, and I wanted to share this with you briefly. About 5 minutes later, after I installed it, my doorbell rang, and I go up. I open the door. There is a beautiful young woman standing there wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey, and she's carrying a stack of horror movie DVDs. And she says it's a gift from Blizzard for joining the beta. So you missed out. And she gave me a hug, and then before she left, she offered to watch me play a JRPG. So just imagine if we're getting that for the beta, what we're going to get when the thing goes live. Oh, my Lord.
I can only imagine. You'll have to regale me with stories because I'll never know.
I'm going to get you back, man, somehow.
It's not going to happen.
Well, finally, we have a special guest. You heard his voice just a moment ago. We are always thrilled when Richard Nyack drops by the show. Hey, Richard.
Shub Sundya, gentlemen.
Richard, you and I have both been playing StarCraft II Wings of Liberty, or, as I like to call it, StarCraft II on the Wings of Love.
You got to sing a few verses after that, man.
There's no song here. It's simply a title. We have had, Richard, a few emails asking if we're going to do a StarCraft segment on the show. We will, just not this week. I want to play all of my placement matches first. But, Richard, why don't you give the audience a little taste, a little morsel of StarCraft II analysis? Would you do that?
Well, so far it's been pretty good. I'm more or less getting the vibe I got from the first game. I mean, I haven't gotten to spend a whole lot of time with it just because I'm only on the I think I'm on the 6th campaign mission, and I'm like you, I haven't even played my placement matches yet. Actually, the only multiplayer match I played was that time that you and I just kind of fiddled around against the computer. So I haven't gotten to spend a ton of time with it yet, but seems solid so far.
When you say fiddled around, let's not undersell it. We crushed the computer.
Okay, we utterly destroyed the computer to the point where they will never even think to raise a hand against us again.
Precisely. On very easy difficulty.
Yes.
I was going to say, yeah, sounded like it.
Well, that was a lengthy set of introductions, but as I mentioned before the theme song, in just a bit we will be sharing all the hot details of Brad's trip to Uber Entertainment to see the upcoming XBLA title Monday Night Combat. Plus, we have all been playing Limbo, all 5 of us, and that's going to be our final segment. Just a heads up, it will be spoiler-packed. We will give you plenty of warning, so don't panic, but we are taking advantage of finally having all of us play the same game. So that's all coming up later, but right now, it's our quote of the week. Meow. Here comes Felipe with this week's sealed quote. As always, none of us are aware of its contents, other than that it is a gaming-related quotation from a publisher, developer, analyst, critic, or gamer. Thank you, Felipe. We will open that up and take a look. Oh my. It would appear that Felipe has purposefully taken something out of context to generate controversy. Here is the quote.
He's mischievous,
He
Felipe.
certainly is. Here is the quote. Street Fighter is ultimately a game about kicking and punching each other in the face, and that is the foundation that players are able to relate to. When the game no longer represents the perception of fighting that is expected from players, then the game becomes as meaningless as a competitive game of hopscotch.
Hey, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. The author of this quote is on this very podcast, Chi Kong Lu. Are you calling Street Fighter hopscotch? Are you saying it's irrelevant? Perhaps you would like to place this quote in context. Explain yourself, sir.
I guess I am calling it. Well, those were my words, right? What am I going to say? Yeah. I guess that was me getting a little colorful there, and unfortunately the internet dinged me for it.
Yeah. Well, let's back up. You wrote an essay
Sure.
that is posted on GameCritics.com. The name of that essay was Exploring the Impact of UFC and MMA on Street Fighter.
Now that's the current title. The original title was Why Street Fighter is Irrelevant Because of UFC and MMA.
And the 60-second core of your argument is what?
The 60-second core of my argument is that the success of Street Fighter can be largely attributed to martial arts, right? And because martial arts has changed thanks to UFC and MMA, players no longer feel like they're playing anything remotely related to martial arts, and thereby it loses its real-world connection. I guess I'll lead in with the example that I used in the article, which was Grand Theft Auto 3. And I always think that I always thought that Grand Theft Auto 3 was largely successful because of the amount of cultural reference to gangster movies like Godfather, Pulp Fiction.
Maybe The Sopranos?
Yeah, exactly. The Sopranos. Thank you for that. So if it wasn't for those things, Grand Theft Auto 3 would be nowhere near as popular as what it was, because literally I had women friends, on the way to work telling me about how much they want to play this game. And I'm just kind of shocked, how did this happen, right? Yeah, and I always think it has to draw from some sort of real world reference. Don't get me wrong. Also, there's always going to be a lot of reasons why something is successful, right? It's never one thing, right? And I think that's one of the misconceptions of what I wrote. When something like Street Fighter just becomes sort of a cultural phenomenon, it's more than, to me, it's just more than gameplay, right? You have to look at the whole entire picture. I looked at Street Fighter and I had to think that something along the lines of the martial arts had to be a part of what made it so successful. And when you look at the influences there as far as Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport and all that, that was a major part of it. And then when martial arts changed after the UFC and MMA kind of came in there, that had to influence as well why it was popular. That's not to say that UFC, and this is another misconception about what I wrote, it's not to say that I'm saying that UFC and MMA are so popular or more popular than Street Fighter, or the game is more popular than Street Fighter. It's just that the public opinion of martial arts is not the same. I mean, you gotta really remember back in the day, pre 1993, prior to the UFC 1. Really, we really had no idea what real martial arts looked like. We really, in some ways, thought Bloodsport was more or less what that's what we thought martial arts was. And people have been hitting me a lot with that fireballs and hurricane kicks and all that. That's not realistic martial arts. But like I said, it's not. We really had no idea what it was to begin with. So that interpretation was as good as any in my mind. But that's sort of the long and short of it.
Okay. So it seems like one of the hangups that the commenters of the article have had is that right now Street Fighter is enjoying quite a renaissance. Indeed, probably as, if not as popular as it was in the Street Fighter II era, it is as popular as it's been since then by a great margin. And if Street Fighter is no longer connected to the current trend in martial arts, how do you explain its current popularity? What is it?
Good question, and that's part of the reason why I edited my article, because that was to be quite honest, I kind of fucked up there. I took the easy way out as far as setting up the article. I just kind of because we talk about Street Fighter 4 on this podcast before, and we're all sort of like not really big on it. We're not fans, and we've hated on it. So I kind of just thought, hey, there's probably more than a few people out there who aren't crazy about this game either. So I just sort of generally, I thought it was just widely agreed that the series has been sort of in a decline since the original. And yeah, I knew Street Fighter 4 had sold well, but I just didn't think that it was worth mentioning. But of course, people wouldn't let me go on that one. They were just sort of saying, well, Street Fighter 4 is doing so great, it sold millions of copies. But to me, I think if you look at, it still hasn't even outsold the original, first of all, and that's only like the SNES copies. I think if you factor in, inflation to some extent, it's relatively successful, but I don't think it's the, what Street Fighter 2 was as far as being a cultural phenomenon. So that was my point. So that's why I went back to the article and tweaked it a little bit so that to more accurately represent and be a little more subtle about it, and not just sort of paint broad strokes as I originally did. I just. And in my defense, I used the broad strokes because I was just so eager to get to my points that I, misrepresented certain things. Or I don't know if it was necessarily misrepresented, but people didn't appreciate it, and I heard that loud and clear. I kind of forgot. Unfortunately, Street Fighter 2 is still one of those sacred cows out there. And didn't pay my respect. So I deserved it in some respect.
Well, let's bring in the rest of the crew, and I'll turn to Mike first, and I believe of those who have not spoken, you are the biggest Street Fighter fan. What was your reaction?
Whoa. Well, where'd that come from?
Maybe not. I don't know. Stuff up.
I was thinking the same thing.
And Mike, maybe of those who remain, you are the least likely to enjoy a game of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I'll just reverse that entirely.
Good save.
I can't even believe how much you hate Street Fighter. It's incredible. What was your reaction to the article and what she has said here tonight?
I think she makes some interesting points, and I'm really happy to see him kind of come out and say that he tried to kind of paint things in broad brushstrokes, because I think that was my original problem with what he had written, is that, you could kind of tell he kind of glossed over certain things to try to get to the points he wanted to make. And, this is what I love about Chi, though. He's always got some, like, crazy... crazy's not the right word. Crazy's a mean word. I don't mean it that way.
I'll take crazy. That's all right, man.
He's always got some really different perspective, and even when I don't agree with it, I usually listen to him, and then I can see where he's coming from, and that's sort of here. I mean, Street Fighter is a funny example for me, because I think, honestly, most guys who really wanted to have like a sort of real martial arts game experience had like moved on to like Virtua Fighter or games like that. So I don't know that Street Fighter was maybe the greatest example, but I think there's something interesting here to look at, especially with the whole UFC thing, which I don't know a lot about. But and look, Street Fighter has been stagnant for years. I mean, you can call it Street Fighter 4, but it's just really Street Fighter 2 with prettier graphics. So I don't want to crucify Chi over this article. I think he's taken his abuse already, and I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon. So
can I just say one thing in response, Mike? Sure. Also, the reaction you said that there's something there, that was really the best reaction I could hope for from people. That's what I wanted them to say. I mean, because let's face it, this is a blog post, right? I mean, honestly, if I had the time and the money and the resource, I could write an entire chapter of a book about this. That's how I think how deep the topic is in some respects, just and beyond just martial arts as well, but just sort of why games are popular and that sort of thing. And this is a blog post. I thought people would give me a pass on it. But
no, this is the internet. There are no passes.
Right.
So no passes.
So, but the reaction that final reaction that you had was really what I was hoping for, and but I took too much of an easy way. I thought I took I tried to take too much of an easy way out there. So that that's fair.
And they'll call you on that every time.
Yeah. Haters gonna hate. What are you gonna do, right?
Yep, definitely.
Brad, anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, we could actually we could talk the entire show about this topic, because I think that it's a really big topic. I mean, like Mike said, I mean, I don't agree with what she said. I think that the fundamental argument he put forward, even though I think there's some merit to it, I think the way it was couched was like totally wrong, and easily understand why people had a strong reaction to it. I mean, I had the same reaction myself, and I was like, oh, I wish we had talked about this beforehand. I mean, I would have liked to have given Chi my own 2 cents on it before he put the blog post up, and it probably would have saved him an ulcer. But
believe it or not, I had 2 people review it.
Well, the wrong
and
people,
it
evidently.
Still got through. Yeah, apparently, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Anyway, outside of that, I mean, it's a very big topic, and I think the thing that people really strongly reacted to was the fact that and no offense or anything, but I think Chi basically kind of misunderstands like the whole popularity of Street Fighter 2 and the way he was representing it, even though there's a nugget of an idea in there about the MMA and about the cultural relevance. I mean, I think it kind of showed a really, really fundamental misunderstanding of what most people's conception of Street Fighter is and what it represents. I mean, to me, Street Fighter never had any relevance with, quote unquote, like real life martial arts. It was never meant to be a representation of anything that happens in real life. I mean, I'm not going to go the route that you mentioned about how fireballs and hurricane kicks are never real. I mean, even though granted they're not. But I think the real purpose of it was really 2-player versus. I mean, that to me was the absolute core of why Street Fighter took off. I mean, it was about you stepping up to an arcade machine, somebody else, real life, real time, being there. And it's the whole, winner stays, loser pays mentality. I mean, that was the first time in the history of arcades and of pretty much video games in general where you could actually show off how good you were against somebody else and see their face and put them in their place and talk trash to them. And it was like this total like revolution in how games functioned in people's lives. I mean, I can remember going down to the local arcade after high school like every single day, everybody talking about who was the best, who played which character, what happened last week, who beat the game, I mean, it was like this giant zeitgeist that just swept through the entire arcade scene, video game scene. And it didn't have anything to do with martial arts on TV. I mean, maybe some. Maybe some.
See, that's where I'm going to disagree with you, Brad.
But you would be wrong, though, Chi. That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say. You're wrong.
Let me. So, I got some counterpoint to that.
Okay, well, let me just finish up. Then and you can count. So, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing that people responded to because the way that Chi originally had positioned it, it didn't really touch on any of that at all, and it made it sound as though, people were into Street Fighter because it was like this. It connected with martial arts, and now that MMA is more popular, that that's why Street Fighter is irrelevant, which is the way you originally put it. And I mean, ask anybody who plays Street Fighter. I mean, number one, they're going to say it's not irrelevant because I think that out of all the fighting games, it's still at the top of what people who play competitive fighters play. So I think it still has a very, very strong relevance in certain circles. I mean, granted, it's not the same monster that it was, but I think that there's a whole host of reasons why that is. And like I said, we could spend an hour getting into those. And also, I mean, I think MMA itself is pretty niche. I mean, I know that you're a big fan of it. I know certain people are fans of it, but in general, it's kind of an unknown thing. Like, people don't really get on the MMA bandwagon, the MMA games. I mean, the last one sold relatively well, I think, but it's not like anybody I personally know is playing it or even talking about it. So the way that you kind of came off, it really made it sound like you didn't know what the hell you were talking about, even though that's not the case. And I think it was kind of unfortunate that you, like you said, you painted with such broad strokes that people really like had a really strong reaction to the point which you were trying to make, which in the end is actually pretty interesting.
All right. It's unfortunate because even though like a lot of the things that you said that I said isn't pretty much what I said at all.
But it was how it was perceived.
Exactly. It was definitely how it was perceived, even though I wrote specific things in there to counter certain points, but it still didn't matter. For example, I never even in the original edit tried to argue that UFC and MMA was popular. I never tried to argue that. I made it a point to emphasize.
I mean, your title screamed it from the top of the rafters, man. I mean, you may not have said it specifically in the body of the text, but you didn't have to.
In fact, I went to great lengths to say that it wasn't mainstream, though. I wasn't trying to argue that MMA was taking over and all this other stuff. But again, you can go back and reread it or whatever. That's fine. When you say like it was all about the 2-player, competitive and all that bragging rights and all that stuff, right? Are you telling me that what you were actually playing had no relevance to why this game was successful? Like the fact that you're actually like the game's called Street Fighter. You're punching and kicking someone in the face. I mean, that doesn't have any relevance to why this, to what you're doing. Because that's what.
No, I don't think it did. I mean, I think what made it the success that it was like there had never really been a game like that in arcades before, like any kind of like competitive two-player like that. I mean, B, it's a really well-made game.
That's not true. That's not true. There were. I mean, you can go back to as far back as Pong. I mean, then there was Karate Champ and.
Well, okay, anything that was as well-made or as
no, that's true. That's true. And then there's even the original Street Fighter, but no, that part's true.
Well, if you want to go all the way back, I mean, you can go back to Space War, and that was the first competitive two-player. But I'm talking about something that really was.
While you're there, because I was going to go back to Space War. I was going to go back to Space War.
Well, let me finish. Right? Okay, wait, hold on. Because you asked me a question. Let me finish answering the question. So, there may have been two-player games before that, but none that were as well-made or that had the same kind of immediacy. They didn't have the technical craft. It didn't have the graphics. It didn't have the same appeal that Street Fighter did. And I think honestly, I think that was. Everybody thought Street Fighter was cool characters, cool art, cool moves. But I don't think it was intrinsically the fact that it was martial arts. I think if somebody had come out, with some kind of shooter game or something else that was in a different genre but was as equally well made and had the equal level of graphics, I think it would have done just as well. I think fighting was something that.
No, I have to disagree with that. There is something about two sweaty dudes standing next to each other trading punches, the violence of the game. If it was competitive spaceships or competitive Mario Brothers, I don't think it would have anywhere near the impact.
Okay, yeah. But something that was still one-on-one in nature. Something that was... that's totally fine. I'll concede that. I definitely think that that's true. It could have been boxing. It could have been, it could have been a different fighting system. It could have been something.
But that's my point. See, so you just conceded the point I was trying to make, and that's really as far as I wanted to go. I think that's where there's a lot of misconception.
I have no idea.
You just said that it's an important. You said you give Tim that point that it's two sweaty dudes fighting it out, and that was my point more or less.
Well, that just relates back to the two-player, which my original premise was like that it's versus. That's the whole point of it. Of course.
Yeah, but it's still versus in a format that translates to other people, not just. And let me just use the Space War example. Space War is the first video game that ever came out, right? And that actually made it into the arcades as well via who's the Atari guy?
Bushnell.
Yeah, Bushnell, right? He put out Space War before Pong, but that's two spaceships shooting it out. Well, that's great for geeks, right? It wasn't a big success. He wasn't a big success until he put out Pong. Why? Because that's a game of tennis, and people can relate to that. You see what I'm saying? So,
well, I agree with that. I think it's relatable, but how does that relate to MMA or UFC?
So what I'm saying is that what made Street Fighter 2 popular, again, there's no direct comparison to Space War versus to Street Fighter, but martial arts again was the language that made this all connect. It's not a game of frisbee. It's not a game of hopscotch. It's a game of two guys fighting it out.
I'm not conceding that.
Kicking each other.
I think it could
that's
have been
martial arts. It's about fighting. That's ultimately what it is. Martial arts represents the highest form of fighting. Again, I'm not trying to say that. And here's the other point I was trying to make. I never said that this was a realistic game of martial arts. It's what people thought martial arts should be in their heads. And what was those thoughts fueled by? Those thoughts were fueled by Bloodsport, by Enter the Dragon. So of course it's going to be a little bit out there, and of course there's a strong anime influence, but no one knew what anime was back then. So it didn't matter that they were doing all this kind of cartoony shit. When people played that game, they couldn't care less that it was anime. They just cared that you can punch and kick each other, and you were doing something that somewhat resembled martial arts in their heads. And
I would disagree with that. I don't think that's correct, but we can disagree.
All right.
I think the violence, I don't know if specifically martial arts, but I think the violence speaks to that demographic. The demographic that played Street Fighter and was in the arcade 4 hours a day, every day, 12 hours a day on the weekends. Violence speaks to young men, and I think that's a big part of it.
I would agree with that, yes, I would.
So I'm going to call the discussion here, unless anyone has another big point to make. I just want to point out that hundreds of arguments just like this are happening every hour of every day on the pages of GameCritics.com.
Can I just have one closing remark, Tim?
It's your article. You may have the final word.
Sure. I think a lot of the misconception comes from how I'm trying to blow up this whole UFC MMA thing, and to that I say, we don't have to be fashion experts to understand to know that fashion, what goes on in the fashion industry affects how we dress. And I think it's the same thing here. Just because we don't actually know what goes on in the martial arts, or it doesn't have to be popular, doesn't mean that trends that go on in the martial arts world doesn't send ripples down to what we do when we're playing games about martial arts, watching films about martial arts. As one of the commenters that was actually on my side, Cybermind, you got to give props to him for backing me up on. So that's it. Yep.
Very good. We will link to that article in the show notes. If you haven't had a chance to read it already, click that link and join in the discussion / shouting match. Let's move on now. Game Critics Junket Quest 2010. It continues with Brad's trip to Uber Entertainment to see the upcoming Xbox Live Summer of Arcade release, Monday Night Combat. Now, my first question is, how did Mike and I get skipped on the junket? Because Brad saw Lost Planet, Chi saw UFC, somehow Mike and I missed our chance to go somewhere.
Yeah, we're always getting the shaft on this show.
I'll tell you. Brad, how did this come about?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because it's kind of a convoluted story, but a while back I put out a blog post that was criticizing the developers of Brink, which is a game which actually has not been released yet. I think it just got pushed back. And my criticism of that game was that it was a game that was touting itself as being a AAA experience for people who like to customize, and at the same time there wasn't a single female character or female option in the entire game, kind of putting forth the image that, we have a AAA game, but we don't need to include half of the population of Earth, which kind of bugged me to no end. So I wrote a blog post criticizing them about that, and one of the developers at Uber is friends with a guy who works at Brink who was flipping out about the article that I wrote, and they were talking about it. So that guy at Uber sent me an email, and we kind of just met that way. He introduced himself to me via email, and it turns out that their studio is actually only about a half an hour from my house, which was great because no one had to pay for airfare. So we just kind of continued talking, and they extended the invite, and there it was.
Did his intro email to you say, "Hey asshole, my friend told me about this thing"? Was it like that at all, or?
No. It was not like that at all. The guys at Uber are really cool, and actually his email was more along the lines of, it was something like, hey, just so you know, we actually like girls in our games. Would you like to come check this out? So I was like, okay, sure. So it was all above board. They didn't take any cheap shots or anything. I mean, if I had thought even for a moment it was going to be like a hostile situation, I don't think I would have went for it. But no, they were very cool, very nice guys.
Was it just you, Brad, or was this an event for multiple journalists?
No, this was just me. It was just a personal invite because they knew that I was in the area, and after they told me where they were, I realized they were in my area. I mean, I don't know if people know this in general, but Washington State and the Seattle area is rich. It's really rich with development houses. There are tons and tons of game developers here in Washington, specifically in Seattle and Bellevue and those types of areas around my neck of the woods. And I think probably we have the highest concentration of developers if you don't count maybe there's one place in Canada that's got a bunch, and then people in California and stuff. So there's actually tons of people in the area, and it's a really great place to live. I mean, Microsoft is here, Nintendo is here, so there's lots of talent locally.
So you go to Uber Entertainment. What did they show you? Did they show you around? Did you go right to the game? Did you meet the people? Walk me through the first hour or so of the experience.
Sure. So I drove out to their location. Really nice location. They had a pretty good view. I thought it was a pretty nice place. It's in a really popular part of a town, which I don't know if they would want me to mention it out in public, but it's close by, and it's a really popular place with people who are kind of up and coming. So I went down there. They greeted me at the door. We kind of just shook hands all around, and we just kind of talked for a little bit. We had a bit of lunch because everybody was hungry, and then after that, we just came back and they showed me the game. So it was pretty quick. We got in there. Both John Combs, the creative director, and one of the guys, his name is Eka, who is the art director. They both gave me like a really thorough informational session about who they were, what the game was, what I could expect. And once that was done, everybody in the studio just kind of jumped on a computer and we fired it up and we had at it.
So for those who don't know what this game is about, can you give us the 10,000-foot view?
Sure. There's tons of videos, and Uber's doing a really big PR push. I think what's going on is it was selected as one of the Summer of Arcade titles, and it's kind of a multiplayer-oriented, shooter-ish kind of thing. And the art style is really reminiscent of Team Fortress 2, so a lot of people kind of instantly wrote it off as being a Team Fortress clone. But I can say that after actually having hands-on, it's actually a lot different than that. And it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of people have that misconception. Basically what goes on is it's kind of like a sport. It's like a futuristic, murder sport kind of thing. And you start off the game on this field, and at each end of the field is a giant ball. And the only way that ball can be destroyed is if your team's robots reach it and destroy it. So what you're trying to do is your team is trying to guard your robots in order to enable them to destroy the enemy team's ball. So you have 6 different character classes. There's like an assassin, there's a heavy gunner, there's a tank, there's an assault kind of guy, so forth and so on. And so you can pick whichever class you want. There's different powers and little skill trees that you can have, little micro skill trees. And so basically the whole point of the game is that you work with your team to protect your robots and try to take down the opponent's ball. So it's very, 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 very team-oriented.
I'm curious, you mentioned Team Fortress 2. Did they raise the Team Fortress 2 point, or did you raise did that come up at all?
I was going to say that was going to be my first question to you, Brad, about that. How much of a influence do you think Team Fortress had over something like that? Because watching the videos, it seems like it had quite a bit. Obviously I haven't played it, so what would you say to that?
Well, that's a really fair question, and that was one of the first questions that I asked them, and I just asked it straight up. I knew that they probably are going to be a little bit sensitive about it, since that's probably the game's biggest, thing it gets dinged for. And they were straight up. They all had played Team Fortress, and they were very open in saying that, they had experience with it. They weren't trying to say like, "What's that? I've never heard of that game before." They weren't being coy about it, but at the same time, they really did make the case that even though visually it's a little bit similar, and I think probably picking orange and stuff was maybe it kind of set them up for it. But they explained that the concept was fundamentally different, and after playing through it, I can say that it is fundamentally different. It's a shooter. Your characters are kind of anime-ish, kind of like the way Team Fortress is. There's parallels that can be drawn, but I think that can be said about any shooter game. So I don't think it's really fair to ding them as people who are playing off of the Team Fortress vibe, but I can see where people are coming from, but really, in my experience anyway, I didn't find that to be very true.
This is a console multiplayer shooter coming out in one of the most crowded multiplayer shooter environments in recent memory. People are still playing Modern Warfare 2. They're still playing Battlefield Bad Company 2. Within a little over a month, we'll have Halo Reach. Just beyond that, Call of Duty Black Ops. Are they concerned about this game finding a place? Did they talk about what might set it apart or what type of audience they're going for? Is it a different audience than plays those other more mainstream games?
Yeah, I did ask them that. I said, basically, why should anybody care about this? Because, a lot of people have already written it off as being a clone of Team Fortress 2. There's tons of shooters on the 360. Lots of options out there. Why should anybody put their $15 down for this? And, they were very cognizant of the competition, but they really took pride in their project. And after actually seeing it, I think one of the big things they were trying to push was that it's really a team game, and team not in the sense of you have 6 people on the same team and everybody's fragging everybody. It really takes a lot of teamwork to play the game well. So it feels different, and you have to have a very different kind of mindset to play it successfully. So it feels different once you give it a chance. And I think also with the sports-oriented kind of position they've put on it, it's people play sports games all the time. You can play football games repeatedly. You can play baseball games repeatedly because, people who are fans of those sports will play them. I think they're kind of shooting for something similar to that where, you're not necessarily going after the better weapon or whatever. You're maybe working on your team tactics. You're working on your strategy. And since it's, it's going to be multiplayer, if you get a good team together, they've put in a bunch of features that let your team stay together. So if you play different matches over and over, you don't have to like go through the same lobbies and reconnect with everybody. You just kind of stay together as a team. So I think I can understand that they're up against a pretty big wall, but at the same time, I kind of was into what they were doing. It definitely felt a little bit different to me.
Are they trying to give it that Smash TV Running Man type vibe, or they are more taking a serious sports type approach to it?
It's funny you mention that because that was kind of what I thought. Once I started watching some of the gameplay, it did remind me a little bit of Smash TV, just from the attitude, just from like the vibe of it. And they were saying that's for sure what they're going for. I mean, I think they mentioned they were playing the. I think it was like the Rocky theme song when they were. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. If I'm getting that wrong, I apologize to the people at Uber because. Oh no, A-Team. That's what it was. They were listening to the A-Team theme song to get kind of the mix between heroic and cheesy kind of thing. So they're definitely. It's not a serious game by any means. If you watch some of the videos, they're very humorous. It's very lighthearted, but the core of gameplay is really solid. So it's kind of like it is one of those wink and a nudge, look at us, look at we're being violent, but at the same time we're laughing kind of thing. So
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going back to what you're saying about teamwork, and real teamwork, and not just people running around shooting people as they please. That's something that's when it works well, it comes together beautifully, and that's the reason why games like Team Fortress or Left 4 Dead or anything like that works so well, because the concept of team is actually you have to work with the other players in order to be successful, and it's not like something like Halo where you don't really have to do that. I mean, it's just like if you're awesome at the game, you're awesome at the game, but if you have a bad team, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, it sounds like from what you're saying that they're doing it pretty well, and if they do, then well, good for them. I will become a fan.
Richard, for those who don't know, Richard is a hardcore Team Fortress 2 guy. You've got some hours in that game.
Yeah, I've got about 600 hours, I think.
Oh, geez.
So
he's done multiple posts on the website regarding some Team Fortress as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I've written my little mini reviews of the updates that no one bothers to read, but I enjoy doing them, so I'm going to continue to do so.
When you play Team Fortress, and do you find that when you're grouped with random people that teamwork just happens, or that it's just complete chaos, or do you need a dedicated group of people who practice together, who play together, who have a routine together for that to be effective?
As far as Team Fortress goes, no. And grouping up, being able to play with and be on a team with random people actually works much better than you would think it does, because the teamwork, it really isn't all that complicated, but you do need to know what to do. And it's like, as long as you have a group of people that know how to play the game competently, then you should be okay. It's the internet, so you're gonna have a whole bunch of assholes that are just screwing around and making teleporter traps and crap like that. But more often than not, you will run into people that are actually trying to play.
That's good that they're trying. That's something.
Trying to play. I mean, sometimes you just you run into this. The other team is just stacked beyond belief, and there's just nothing you can do. But them's the breaks.
So carrying that thought over to Monday Night Combat, Brad, does Uber think that groups of random people just coming together are going to be able to play this game effectively? That teamwork is just going to happen?
Well, I think it's kind of like what Richard said. I think if you know how to play the game, it's really going to help, and that'll be beneficial. But and believe me, when I first started playing the game, I actually was a little surprised at how much there was to it. I expected to kind of just jump in and go, get a few pointers here and there. But I thought from watching the videos that I knew what I was going to be doing, and that actually turned out to be like 100% not the case. There's actually way more to it than appears, and so I really was like stumbling. It took me a while to even figure out what was going on, in kind of a good way. I mean, and I got to say also, the Uber Entertainment team just completely wiped the floor with me. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, we started up, and I was getting the sense that they were taking it easy on me, because I would see their avatars kind of come in real close and then like run away, or they would like pop up and they would pop away. Like they were kind of kind of counting coup on me a little bit. And then once that first like 30-second grace period went away, it was like there was no mercy, and it was very, very obvious to me that they enjoy their game, and they enjoyed sharing that with me. So I think in the case of Monday Night Combat, if you have a dedicated team, I think that would absolutely be the best way to go, because you want to have like a good spread of all the different types. I mean, you want to have one tank, you want to have one of the snipers, you want to have one of the ninjas. I don't think you want to have. I mean, everybody when they start playing this game, it's going to be like everybody's going to be like a sniper or a ninja, and that doesn't make for a very good team. So
I was going to call shotgun. I was going to call shotgun and a ninja for our Game Critics team.
I was going to say, as far as Team Fortress goes, it goes, teams with 4+ snipers rarely win out unless the other team is just, god awful terrible.
Right. I mean, you totally want people who know what they're doing. So I mean, if I was to play this game, and if I actually wanted to have a good time, and if I actually wanted to win, to me anyway, from the limited amount that I saw, it seems to me like having a dedicated team would be better than just joining up. But at the same time, I mean, I'm sure that you can get in there and play. There's also a one-player mode too, so if you don't have any friends online, you can do that as well.
Or if you just don't have any friends, period.
Or that too.
Yeah.
So can I ask one question before we move on?
Absolutely.
All right. So when I look at this game, you know what it reminds me of? Death Row on the Xbox. Do you get that vibe from it? Because I hated Death Row.
No, to be perfectly honest, I never once did Death Row even enter my mind, and so I'm gonna use that as like huge praise.
Good.
For the Uber team, because Death Row flat out sucked, and it might
and yet some
just sucked. So
yeah, Doolittle loved it, and a couple other people I know loved it, and I could never fucking understand why they liked it, because I played it and it was horrible.
Yeah, it was awful, controlled awful, bad idea, bad implementation, bad graphics, bad everything. Everything was bad. I don't know why these people liked it. I have no idea.
I had flashbacks when I saw it, just for some reason, because it was like futuristic sports, so automatically my brain says, oh no, Death Row, and that's like,
No.
end of it.
Not
so
even,
I'm glad.
even remotely, not in the ballpark of Death Row at all.
Good.
They must have did something right for you to even bring the game up and out of nowhere here.
Something wrong. Something terribly wrong.
I guess that's another way to look at it too, yeah.
So last question before we wrap up the segment. Uber Entertainment, relatively new developer. This is their first game, correct?
Yes, as a studio under the title of Uber Entertainment, this is their first game, and they were working on it for, I believe, about 2 years. So they have, this isn't something they just dashed out. I mean, they told me the history of it and how much work they put into it. And it shows. It definitely shows. When you fire this up, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how well polished it is, how deep it is, and how much you get for the $15. But they are all comprised of industry veterans. I mean, I don't think anybody on the team was a newbie. Some of the people were from EA. Some of the people were from gas-powered games. I think Eka, the art director, I believe he was from Bethesda. And he had told me a story about when they were back in the warehouse, and they would program the games, and after they would program the games, they would go downstairs. They would physically hand pack the boxes and then get those out to the shipping dock. So like people who worked at Bethesda wore all the hats back then. So they've all been around. They've all had experience, and they were all, from what I could tell, about my same age. I mean, I'm 34 right now. We were all about the same age. Most of us had kids too, which I thought was pretty cool. So nice group of guys.
Yeah, one more reason that I just realized that people might associate this with Team Fortress 2 is the name of the studio, Uber Entertainment. I mean, the medic in Team Fortress 2 has this thing called the Uber charge, and it's colloquially referred to as the Uber. So, there you go.
There you go.
Well, Brad, thanks for taking the bullet and going out to the studio. Gosh.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to do that,
Yeah,
Tim.
thank goodness I got to stay at home. Fold some.
If I could just say real quick, I do want to give a real heartfelt thanks to everybody at Uber. I mean, everybody in the studio was really nice, really warm, really welcoming. It was great of them to take time out of their day and walk me through it. So thanks big time to Uber Entertainment.
Well, Monday Night Combat will be available for download exclusively from the Xbox Live Arcade on August 11th. 1,200 Space Bucks, $15 US. So let's take a break. More after these words. You're watching NBC's coverage of the 2005 Kentucky Derby. We'll be back. us have played the same game on this podcast, and for all 5 of us to have played the same game probably puts a healthy crack in the space-time continuum. Nevertheless, that is the case with Limbo, and here is your spoiler warning, folks. We are going to take advantage of this unique situation and discuss the entire game from start to finish, holding back nothing in terms of plot or puzzle spoilers. So abandon the podcast now if that is a concern for you. It's your call. This is your last warning. In a moment, you will hear an animal sound. After that, it's spoiler territory. Okay. Thanks for sticking around, folks. Here's the quick description of Limbo. Doesn't really do it justice, but it is a side-scrolling puzzle platformer developed by Playdead. Very minimalist presentation, black and white, almost no music, kind of a film noir look with that film grain in front of the visuals. Plot-wise, all we really know going into the game is that there's a boy who appears only as a silhouette with white eyes. He wakes up in a forest. He's looking for his sister. And like I said, I realize it doesn't do it justice, so I'm going to turn first to Mike, because we haven't heard much from Mike tonight. Mike, this game makes a heck of a first impression. What were your thoughts as you experienced those early minutes of Limbo?
I was absolutely blown away by it when I first saw it. The visuals of the game are so appealing to me, I guess because, I'm a horror guy and I'm a film guy, and you really nailed it with the film noir description. It the gray and the black, it's very dark, it's really atmospheric and moody and somber, and the first few minutes I was just basically kind of stood there and just tried to drink it all in, and then for the rest of the experience to be that same style with the grain and everything, really, really cool. I bitched on this show in the past that we shouldn't always try to compare games with film terminology, but this is a game that kind of lends itself to talking about it aesthetically in terms of how it compares to film, which I hope we'll maybe get into in a little bit.
Other impressions of the early game, I mean, for me, when the screen first fades in and you see the boy lying there and he looks up, I thought I was watching a cutscene, and I was really kind of stunned when I realized that's exactly, that's the game. You're actually playing the game at that point. It was really pretty memorable.
One of the high points was, it was just like you said, Tim, I thought I was watching a cutscene, and then once I realized that no, this is actually the game and it started and the game is simply waiting for me to put in an input, I was really impressed because I thought it looked just indescribably beautiful from the start, and I was like, wow, this looks sharp. And then to find out that the entire game looks that sharp it just really blew me away. It was pretty mind-blowing.
The exact same thing happened to me. I thought I was watching a cutscene at first, and it's like, oh, hey, I can control things now.
I think that the thing that stuck out in my mind as far as comparing it to other games was I was immediately thinking about Out of This World,
sure,
or / Another World, and some things live up to that and some things don't. We can get into that more later, I suppose.
And I guess let's talk about the gameplay. Like I said, it's a side-scrolling puzzle platformer. Some of these puzzles were pretty devious. Let me ask you first, did any of you have to look up an answer?
In the 60% of the game I finished, I had to look up one solution, but that was it.
There was the one where you had the 2 gravity things, and you had you had like a box way over on the far left and then one on the right, and you had to basically hit the gravity switch and go up to the ceiling, and then the one came up with you, and then you had to run all the way to the left across the roof there and find the other one and push it back, and then you had to drop them on the two things, the bars that slid out and made steps so you could get up to the next platform. I didn't realize I could run all the way over there and get that other box. So I'm like, how the fuck can I do this with one box? So that was the one that got me. There were a couple others that I sat for a long time and puzzled over. This was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, Mike, I got stuck on that one too. That one was a real toughie. But the one that really got me, and I only had to look up one solution, so I was pretty happy about that. But the one that got me was almost at the very end, when the little boy is standing at an edge, and then you have to run and jump, and there's like a sign that flips the gravity like laterally,
yes,
so that you start to fall to the right. Like, for whatever reason, I didn't. It didn't make sense to me. Like I honestly don't think that the developers queued that one properly because it didn't occur to me that you could trigger things in mid jump and the little flashing button on the side of that sign. It wasn't big enough to me. Like I just didn't notice it. And the thing that really killed me was that at the bottom of the screen there's a rope, and that rope is in the same shade of black that other ropes are that you can grab. Mm-hmm. So I thought that what you had to do was jump off and fall. There's also a saw blade right above that rope. So I thought what you had to do was time it so that you jumped in order to fall beneath the saw blade, but at the same time catch the rope. And I came so close to doing it, like so often, like I thought, well, I'm just not doing it right. And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, and I just could not get that fucking rope. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I just gave up and I looked it up, and I'm like, wow, I'm not even remotely trying to do the proper
right.
So that was my one giant sticking point. And honestly, I mean, yeah, okay, I'm not the smartest guy in the block, but to me, I felt like that one maybe wasn't cute as well as some of the other ones were. I mean, what did you guys all think about that?
Let me just jump in on this point because, I mean, I wanted to just say first of all, does anyone think that this is sort of like a negative in some sort of way? That because you already heard Mike say, I didn't. I didn't know I didn't know you could do that, and Brad pretty much said the same thing. Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
I was going to say it actually was, because the one puzzle, and again, I've only finished about 60% of the game, but the one puzzle I actually had to look up the solution for. I don't remember exactly where it was, but there was a box on the left side of the screen, on the far left side of the screen, that I could run to and grab, and it was obscured as so much by the scenery that I could not see it at all. Like, I kept trying to make this jump onto this next platform, and I just could not do it. And I eventually looked it up, and there's like, you have to drag the box from the left. I'm like, what box? So eventually I just kind of ran to the left and started pressing the action button randomly until I finally picked it up, and I just could not see it. That, I think, is probably the only real negative I have with it, is because that the whole film noirish feeling is almost too good, to the point where it's difficult to see stuff a lot of the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, it's beyond that. I mean, I did actually really enjoy it, and I found myself enjoying it for a lot of the same reasons that I loved another game that I actually like even more, which is Aquaria. And it's something that took something that has been done before, which is, in this case, I mean, gameplay-wise, there's nothing in here that I had not seen in, or at least most of which I had not seen in some of the old Pitfall games. But it just took something that had been done before, wrapped it in this very nice, aesthetically pleasing package, and said, here you go. And it's like, when you're playing it, you're not thinking, oh, this is just, some cheap Pitfall knockoff. You're playing it because it's like, wow, this looks really cool, and some of these puzzles are really well done. So, I mean, I think that they pulled that off really well.
So I think the big debate here is, do the aesthetics overcome some of the frustration, right? And for me, sorry, let me just get into my story here. The one that stumped me, I didn't have to look this up, and I figured this out eventually, was really early on, where it's pretty simple, right? Where there's a floating box in a pond, and I push the little box out, and I'm trying to jump on the box, and I'm thinking, is this going to float across the other side of the pond? Do I have to make it roll? Do I have to do anything like this? And did you guys struggle with that at all?
Yeah, I did. I think we're talking about the same puzzle.
It's really early. It's like literally like the third or fourth or fifth puzzle.
Yeah.
And I literally spent a half an hour trying to climb on this box as it rolled around, thinking, because I was able to do it successfully a couple of times. So I'm thinking, oh, I just need to do this like 100 more times, right? And next thing you know, half an hour's gone by. I'm struggling to do this. I've died like 30 times, and I'm like, this game's supposed to be 3 hours. I've already killed half an hour in this one puzzle. This can't be right, And of course, I realized later, and a spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear this, is you're not supposed to do that at all. You're supposed to drag the box back to the tree. Thanks, Brad, for the tip. And then jump on top of it. But I just didn't know that, and the fact that there was some physics involved with the box just completely threw me, because it almost tricked me into thinking like, I can do this. So
that's the beauty of the game, though, is that it's devious, and it will make you think you can do something and you're just not quite doing it right, but it punishes you for that kind of like thinking. Like you have to basically as you go along, you start to realize that the game wants you to think about things, and it almost starts to make you think outside the box in every situation, because that's the only way you're going to get through some of those puzzles. Like, I would see things where I thought, oh, I can make this jump, and if I'm just not doing it perfectly, and you can't. So, and when you do it a couple times and you don't make it, you know that and this is a good thing about the game. The controls, the physics of the character and the game are consistent all the way throughout. So there's never a problem like where, well, maybe it's just the physics why I can't make this jump, or the jump's too floaty, or it's this or that. It's consistent. So once you know what you can do on the first level, you can do that on the last level. So as you get further into the game and you're like, I can't make this jump, it's not because you can't make the jump because you're doing it wrong. It's because you have to look, because there's obviously some other thing you're supposed to be doing. I enjoyed that a lot because it made me think and really look at the game in a different way, in terms of not just running through it and jumping around and shit, where I actually had to like try to problem solve.
Yeah, nothing can be taken at face value. At least
exactly
after the first like 3 puzzles, nothing can be taken at first face value.
And it's not a game about controller dexterity. And so you find yourself trying to make a jump and you're just not quite making it. That's not the solution. And when you have that realization, it really the puzzles became so much more enjoyable, because you like you said, Mike, you really have to be thinking about it and exploring the world. It never lets you go anywhere that you're not supposed to go. So
exactly. You can't put yourself into a corner where you're stuck and can't get out of, or anything like that. But you are rewarded for exploring the environment, because the solutions are all there. You just sometimes have to travel a little further than the room you're in to figure it out.
Yeah, and when you die, it's also where it places you when you respawn is also a bit of a hint as well. It's like, okay,
right.
It's like everything you need is right here, which, I mean, I thought that was pretty good.
I love the way that they have so many save points that it's like if you die, you don't have to backtrack.
Yeah,
you get to a puzzle and you're like, you die because it's try and die gameplay, but it puts you right back there and you just keep progressing. So it never gets frustrating. Like, oh, I got to go through these 3 puzzles again to get to the one I can't figure out.
Yeah, I had a shockingly low level of frustration with this game. Like, I thought I was going to be pulling my hair out by, like, the 4th or 5th puzzle, but, they put those save points in there at the exact right point every single time, and they just handled that extremely well. I
gotta say, I was very frustrated by this game, and I'm glad I heard Mike's take on it, because I kind of see where he's getting at, and I'm not trying to say that my interpretation's right or his is right or wrong. I just had a completely different experience with it, and perhaps it's because. When I think of sort of ambient games like this, I guess I expect it to just be a little more free flowing and a little, more, just easy going. I didn't expect this level of frustration, or in terms of difficulty, to really just like constant trial and error. A lot of dying, a lot of just beating my head against a wall, early on, and that sort of just didn't do it for me. And it's kind of interesting because. I thought back to a lot again to Out of This World, because there's a lot of similarities there. I mean, Out of This World's a very difficult game as well, but what made that game a little more tolerable, I suppose, was that was also ambient, but it also had more of a cohesive narrative. Limbo is completely almost abstract. Wait.
Okay, let's hold off the narrative, because I think that's a whole big piece. But actually, Chi, what you just said was exactly played into what I was going to say, and I was saying that out of everybody I've talked to, Limbo splits people down the middle. There are either people like, most of us who just think it's like the best thing ever and who really got into the puzzles. And then there's the other camp of people who got really frustrated and hate it. And I honestly think it's because of the way that you approach the puzzles. And I'm not saying you specifically, Chi, I'm just saying in general.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
The people that hated it, I asked them, I was so curious because I thought this game was so great. I mean, I gave it a 9.5, and I don't. It's pretty rare that I rate something that high, and so I was really curious to see why people didn't like it. And the people who didn't like it were people who were not able to kind of visually process the environment in the game, and they were kind of locked into this mentality of, it's a platformer, I should be able to push to the right and make the jumps and just get through it. and the puzzles should be like a jump, and then I get through it. And
Yeah.
like I talked to several people who were stuck on the puzzle that you were stuck on, the box, and every one of them got to the edge of the water, and they were like, I need to move to the right. I need to keep going. I can't make the jump. I need to do the jump again. I got to try it again. And people who didn't like it weren't able to kind of, get out of that mindset and think about, oh, well, if this isn't working, then I should maybe go back and look for something else. I mean, it was really like I walked my son through this game. My son is 8. And he's really good at games. And I turned the gore off, by the way. I didn't want him to see like all the impalings, beheadings.
Oh,
and
the
stuff.
gore is so cool.
By the way,
It is very cool. I love it.
Good point. Interesting point about as you bring up your son there, Brad, because my son was watching me play this game, and he literally ran to the other room because the spiders and the impalings scared him.
Yes,
that's a testament to the imagery. I think it definitely speaks well of the imagery. It's definitely not for kids, guys. But
absolutely.
My son has never gotten. I mean, he's watched me play like UFC, and I'm mounting on a guy, punching the guy's face in, and he just doesn't even flinch at that. This spider thing impales me. He literally ran to the other room. It was kind of actually a little interesting to see.
Yeah, parents who are listening, please turn the gore off because it is fairly gory, even though it's a silhouette game. But the point that I was going to make was that after I'd been through the game, I thought, well, I'm going to sit him down and I'm going to I really wanted to watch him play it to see how he attacked it. And he started off being of the mindset of I'm just going to jump and make it. But once he wasn't able to progress, I just told him, I'm like, look, son, if this isn't working, try something else. So just remember that, and every time you get stuck, try something else. And once I told him that, he got through like 3/4 of the game no problem. Like he would die maybe 2 or 3 times, and then he would like start to explore the environment. Like if I would cue him and say, hey, didn't work, so what should you do? Try something else. Okay. And he was able to totally get it. I mean, I was really blown away by how well he did. And I think it's just like if you can think in the proper way, the game is smooth and it flows and the puzzles all make sense. And if you can't think that way, it's like pure frustration.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to that.
I also don't want to give the impression as well that just because I couldn't figure that puzzle out, I think this game sucks. That's not what I'm saying at all. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have enough time. I actually wanted my wife to play it to see if she would do the same thing or not, just to see if it would prove anything or not. But either way, as a critic, I wouldn't ding the game purely based on that. But at the same time, that's why I posed the question out to you guys earlier in the show was, is this a good or bad thing? To be quite frank, I'm not reviewing the game from a critical standpoint. I'm not sure what to make of it. It just, like I said, ultimately for me, and even that puzzle that I bitched about earlier, I was able to solve it. You know what I mean? It's not like I wasn't able to solve it. I didn't even need the thing, but it was just so frustrating, and I just don't see myself, and I've gotten through, I don't know how much of the game, probably maybe a third. I just don't see myself going back to it, trying so hard to figure these puzzles out because it's somewhat rewarding. I enjoy it. And some of them are doozies and I even figured those out. But it's just, to me, not torturous, but very frustrating just to get to that point. And at the same time, I'm not getting a satisfaction in terms of a narrative. I go back to that. Sorry if I'm jumping the gun again. maybe this is a good way to transition into it. But, what do you think?
Let's unless anyone wants to talk more about the puzzles, and certainly we can do that, and I'm sure that they'll come up again. But I do want to introduce the discussion of the imagery and the story and the narrative, and I'm going to kick it off with this. I think the game peaks too early, and this is where I think Limbo has a bit of a failure. It peaks too early in that there is so much happening early in the game that contributes to the creepiness, the fear, the danger, the atmosphere, the ambiance. Obviously, you have the spider, you have the people who are setting the traps, they're running away from you, then they mysteriously disappear. You see people being hung, you're using those bodies to solve puzzles, and it's never explicitly said what's going on or who these people are. And that's fine. That's great. I'm fine with that. But there are a lot of breadcrumbs. There are a lot of things like the spider and the people that get you speculating. They get you thinking about what's happening here. There's a sense that it's going somewhere. But after an hour, as the environments become more industrial, you stop seeing people. There are no more hanging bodies. The deaths are being caused from inanimate objects, buzzsaws and electrified walls and blocks falling on your head. And it really does become more video gamey. and less about
Yeah.
the atmosphere. The unsettled feeling is gone. There are no more breadcrumbs to think about or speculate on. All the mood setting of the early game didn't lead us anywhere. And like I said, I'm not saying I wanted everything explicitly spelled out, but I wasn't expecting the game to just be a traditional puzzler for the last 2/3, albeit a very good one with some very clever stuff happening. But I found myself saying as I approached the end of the game, let's get on with it. Nothing comes close to matching the spider. Nothing after the spider even remotely approaches that moment when you first see the spider.
Or the spider chasing you.
Or the spider chasing you, or ultimately how you defeat the spider. That's so epic. And then the rest of the game just doesn't build on that. In fact, it completely almost forgets it ever happened. So I'm wondering, Mike, you seem to be somewhat agreeing with me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It almost feels like two separate games in that regard. I think where you start out and it's got this it's the outdoors and there's the people hanging and it's got this very horror it's got a vibe that's almost indescribable because it's got this really horrific imagery, but it's presented. I don't want to say it's presented in a cute way, but it is where the shadow effect and stuff really takes the edge off of it, and it becomes really unsettling, even though you don't see any blood or anything like that. So it's got all that going on, and there's the spider, and there's the period where you're trapped in the spider cocoon, and you're running around trying to get out of that, and then the spider's chasing you, and all that stuff's really cool and creepy. And then you've got these strange people who are trying to kill you, and then you're right, it does sort of just you get into this industrial area, and the last 2/3 of the game take place in there, and you never see another person again, and it's just solely puzzle solving. Definitely weird. One of my few complaints about the game was that, and I agree with you, it doesn't quite work, but it's I still really like the game.
Regarding that part where you're stuck in the spider web, like in the cocoon, was anyone else distinctly reminded of Spring Mario from the Super Mario Galaxy games?
I did. Yeah, I briefly thought if I hold down the jump button, maybe he'll jump a little bit higher. Absolutely.
Yeah, I kept trying to do that so many times. I'm like, this is just going to be just like that. And it would, I'd keep dying. I'm like, no, they didn't rip it off enough. But
I didn't think that.
no.
So getting off of the Mario thing, I think this kind of gets back to the narrative that she wanted to talk about earlier, and I definitely agree with you guys that the turn towards the industrial, the factory, the gears. I mean, that was kind of it was kind of video gamey, and I didn't like it nearly as much as the beginning. But I kind of have to wonder how much of that was tied into the overall story. And I honestly think that in the description of the game that Tim gave, which sounds pretty close to what the description is before you buy the game on Xbox Live, I think they shouldn't even say that much. I think the fact that the boy is allegedly going after his sister is kind of a spoiler in itself that nobody should even hear about.
I didn't even know that, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not talked about in the game. It's only from the descriptions, like the teaser that's on Live Marketplace and in magazines and stuff or whatever. But to me, when I got to the end of the game, my perspective on it was, I guess we can talk about that, was really different, and it kind of jibed with the whole industrial thing in that if my perception of the game was when you get to the end and you see this girl, I mean, is it a sister? I don't know. I'm not sure if I go along with that. But you get to the end and you stand there, and to me, it almost felt like the girl was trying to keep the boy away. And so my impression of it was that maybe she's the one who's setting up all these obstacles to just keep him away from her. So maybe he's in this fantasy world of her construction. It starts off being that he's on the outskirts and he's out in the wilderness and there's the spider, and maybe the spider just happens to be there. Maybe it's not really actively after him. And then as it gets closer, I mean, are those little boys, are they like her friends? Are they trying to help her to keep your character away? And as you get closer, nobody else is left. I mean, is she using real world kind of gears and electricity and stuff? I mean, because it is that close to what the reality is for these two characters. And so when you finally get to her, I mean, to me, it looked like she didn't want him to be there. like there was kind of a distance between them that was kind of indicated by their spacing on the screen, and just like the kind of, just her back was to him, and that's kind of an indicator that, maybe she wasn't too warm to him. So I agree that the gaminess of those levels was kind of disappointing, but at the same time, I wonder how much of it was actually intended, and how much of it was the developers going, well, we've only got 1 hour of gameplay, what are we going to do? And I'm not sure. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think that I think it was intentional, sort of the openness to it, of just like letting the player interpret what's going on for themselves. The feeling I got is that they said we're just gonna put this kid in a forest and let people write their own story in their head for it. Because that's what I kept doing. Because I was like, gee, I didn't even know like even when I downloaded the game, I didn't see the thing about his sister, so I had no idea that was even happening. I thought it was just some kid that wound up in a forest somehow. So throughout like most of the beginning of the game, I was thinking, like, is he just separated from his parents? Am I going to see like their bodies hanging around somewhere, or what's going on? And so like, I didn't get to the end, but I was consistently writing the narrative myself in my head as I was playing through the game. And I think, and obviously I don't know this for sure, but I think that's what the developer was going for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just kept kind of thinking of it like Eco, like a sort of like a colorless version of Eco. Like, you knew you were going through these puzzles and to get somewhere, but I kind of just was like, I really didn't care that there wasn't a well-defined story there, because the point of the game to me wasn't about the narrative so much. It was really, for me, the joy of the game was the way it looked and the puzzles, and you do feel like this affinity to this little kid because you're him, and you don't, he's just a black blob with white eyes, but you start to fill in your own details for him. So
it was your preference in that order, Mike? Because that's sort of my question I wanted to pose to everyone, where you said the style and then the puzzles.
Yeah, like, for me, yeah, I really got into the game because of the way it looks, and I enjoyed the puzzles a lot. And it's like, it's interesting to me because I like what the game stands for, sort of aesthetically, and that, we see these games now that they're millions and millions of dollars in budget and years and development, and it's all hyper graphics in these complicated systems, and here's a game that just kind of goes back to basics, to like, the 16-bit era or even earlier, and it shows you like you can make a really simple and compelling game without spending all this money or having to have guys shooting people in the face and 600 people on screen at one time and complicated control schemes and all that. So yeah, I did dig it that way.
I love that they had the confidence to just throw you in the middle of the situation, and the confidence in the little narrative crumbs that they left in the story. That would be enough for the people who were interested in thinking about it to be able to speculate. My problem was that they stopped dropping those crumbs, a third of the way through the game. But like I said, I think this is much better than having a scrolling text wall at the start of the game saying, you are Billy and you are looking for your sister Jenny. Very much like Braid from last year, to which this game has drawn some comparisons. Braid had that ponderous, pretentious text between every level. Mm-hmm. And this game just says, you know what? You're either going to figure this out or you're not going to figure it out. And the developer is even, they're saying, you know what, not everybody is probably going to care for this. And that's okay. Not every book is for everybody. Not every movie is for everybody. This game doesn't have to be for everybody. I really appreciated that. I did like knowing that he was going after the sister, because one of the first, really disturbing images you see is the hanging person. And my thought was, oh, crap, is that the sister? Did he find the sister and she's hanging there? And that was kind of a disturbing moment.
Did anyone else get the sense that the boy was growing as the game went on? Like, as if he was spending years and years and years in the forest?
Huh. No, I didn't get that.
That's an interesting point, but no, that didn't occur to me, although I can kind of see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm not positive that I saw it, because it looked to me like the silhouette was actually getting bigger as the game went on, but I'm not 100% positive about that.
Maybe you were getting tired and you were just leaning closer and closer to the screen.
Getting tired, but I mean, it just seemed like the boy was growing as I was going through the game. But I mean, obviously, I'm not certain about that.
The game makes some very stylistic close up and zoom in and outs, throughout the game. So it's really hard to get a good sense of the perception overall, I suppose.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the story for a second, I'm usually one who's like, story is one of my favorite things about any game, and in this particular game, I really appreciated the storytelling, the lack of a story, the lack of text, like you guys said. And Tim, I'm really glad you brought up Braid, because I heard a number of people kind of falling into the default gamer position of, if this game is good, it can't be better than this other game. And so automatically it was Limbo and Braid, and you had to pick a side. Like, you couldn't like them both. I personally fall on the Limbo side because, I don't know about you guys, but even though I appreciated Braid's difference and, its willingness to experiment with time, gameplay, and stuff like that, I didn't feel like it was a very good game. I didn't really enjoy playing Braid. I felt like I died a million times, and unlike Limbo, I felt like I never really knew quite what I was supposed to do in Braid. Like, all the puzzles to me were really, really, really totally trial and error, whereas in Braid, I felt like most of them, if you took a moment to really look at the environment, you could piece together what you needed to do. And in addition, everybody got on their high horse and talked about what a great narrative Braid was and how it was really a commentary about the atomic bomb. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't get any of that when I played through the game. I mean, I had to read an FAQ and then hear somebody who was like, quote unquote, so smart about games educate me about what it was really about. And I'm like, if you're so smart and if this game is so great, then how come that game failed in communicating that to me? I mean, I'm a smart guy. I was reading the text. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, is it just me, or what did you guys think?
I always thought Braid was incredibly overrated. Like, and that's
it's like the French art house film of video games, dude.
Yeah, and it's not to say that it's not to say that it's bad, but it just didn't do much for me. Like, I saw everybody gush about it, and I sat down to play it and expected this like magnificent experience, and I just kind of was like, well, yeah, okay, not terrible, but not really going to change the face of gaming as we know it, which everybody was acting like. I definitely think Limbo just feels more organic to me in some weird way. Like, everything in it is none of it feels gimmicky. It just feels like like there's a really cohesive vision from the very first moments, and it carries through all the way to the end, and it's just good game design, I think. And Braid, with some of it, just felt gimmicky to me at times, so I just never could get into it. And I didn't get the atomic bomb thing either, so this is the first I've heard of that, actually. So
really?
Totally at a loss.
There's
yeah.
like pages and pages and pages written about how deep a commentary Braid's commentary was, and it's like, if I got none of that, well, then I have to call that a failure. I mean, I really do. And maybe people are going to say that I'm just not smart enough to pick up on that, but I mean, if that's really the point of your game, then how come you couldn't just, integrate that into the gameplay? Why did you have to hide the text behind all these weird video game contrivances? I don't know. I mean, Richard and Chi and Tim, what do you guys think?
I have not played Braid, so
Yeah,
No, you're no
say.
I haven't played Braid either, and based on your descriptions, I'm not going to.
Jeez.
Honestly, I think you should play it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those kind of like landmark discussion games that we should all probably play just so we're familiar with it.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of the same reason that I tell people that they should play Heavy Rain, even though I didn't really like it all that much.
Yeah. And it would be interesting to hear what you guys think after playing Limbo and then going back to playing Braid, because Braid, it rode such an incredibly high wave of like positive feeling from everybody that I didn't take part in. I would be really curious to see what you guys make of it now after so much time has gone by and you don't feel pressured to like it, and now that you've seen like the quote unquote like opposite approach with Limbo. We should do like a second follow-up segment or something.
I will. I'll download the demo again, but I was so turned off by just the like I said, the wall of text. But I will give it another shot.
It's a pretentious game.
It really is. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's
really
like
is.
the Rushmore of games, like the movie with Jason Schwartzman. Yeah.
So, any other points about Limbo in terms of puzzle or story, or did any of you put any stock into the title? Is he in Limbo? Is he in purgatory?
See, that's what I thought the whole time, and then I'll tell you, Now, I don't know, like, because I didn't know the sister thing when I started playing it. I didn't find that out till later because I just got the code, downloaded it, and started playing because I was like really excited to check it out. Now, when he gets to the end of the game, and this is like the huge spoiler section. Now, there's a girl there, but when he wakes up in that field, is that like supposed to be like sort of like the same from the beginning?
It's
He
the
wakes
exact same, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, to me that totally made it like Limbo, Purgatory, Groundhog Day. He's just trapped in this place and he's just gonna go through this whole thing all over again. So I dug that. That was cool.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I
say
did
that's
too.
that's depressing, but of course Mike would dig that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm always into the nihilistic endings. So yeah,
Oh, me too, man. Me too, totally, dude. I love a good sad ending. I mean, I was
Yeah.
pissed off when you realized that the girl didn't die at the end of Eco. I was like, oh, cop out. That sucked. It was way better when it was sad. But I mean, like I kind of referred to earlier, I felt like the girl sent him back, and so I totally agree that with the Limbo title, and for me, it was even more so because it wasn't even just him being trapped; it was like somebody like keeping him there. Like to me, that was almost even worse, you know?
But wait, let's consider the order of events. Once you go through the final puzzle, you break through that pane of glass, I guess it is.
glass.
You have
Yeah, whatever it is.
that slow motion fall, and then you land in the forest in that exact same, in the exact same spot that you started the game in. Then he stands up, then he walks to the right, and he sees the girl cut to credits. So my initial interpretation, which was the cop-out ending interpretation, was that he woke up from a dream, walked 3 feet to the right, and there was his sister.
That's funny. I didn't think of that. That's pretty funny, actually.
No, I wasn't that cynical for once. Normally, that would be exactly what I would have thought, but
It's like, do you think part of the intent was that people like us would sit around having these discussions about what the hell everything meant?
well, it's
Absolutely.
funny, yeah, because I was definitely thinking that, and it's funny because we just went through all this. I write about film, so with Inception, we've had weeks of what does Inception really mean? What was Nolan really trying to say? Was it all a dream?
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm going
Oh,
to
sorry, you haven't seen Inception yet?
No,
Oh,
I'm
my
going
bad.
tomorrow
You
night.
But,
need to see it.
Yeah, but well, you'll have a lot to think about when it's over. I'll say that and leave it at that. So,
Let me going back to the Limbo for a second. It sounds like almost the fact that they plugged in he's searching for his sister story almost doesn't make sense, right? I mean, did it really need to be his sister? You know what I mean?
I don't think it did. I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised that they put that in there.
Because it could be so much more and be so much more interesting if it isn't his sister, right? I mean,
well, and I mean that's interesting though because they never tell you anything about her in the game. I mean,
Right.
if you didn't read that thing, you'd be at the end and you'd be like, who the hell's that? So
Totally.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna call
So
that
it's
bullshit.
interesting.
I'm gonna call that bullshit on the marketing people. Like when like the game when Rez came out, the back of the box said you're this hacker. Like yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, assigning any kind of story to Rez is bullshit. It's just like
Yeah.
lights and flashing and shooting. But I mean, I kind of agree with you, Chi. I wonder if it was marketing pressure, like if Microsoft was like, we need to put some kind of blurb here, so you better come up with something. Like maybe they couldn't just say it's, leave it more abstract. If they just called it a boy's journey through a dark land, I mean, would it have sold less copies or more copies? I mean, were they trying to use the sister as a selling point? I mean, I don't know.
It's interesting because I am sort of complaining I want more of a narrative, but if I knew it was the sister quest, that wouldn't have helped anyway. To be quite honest with you, I mean, it's not that I want like an actual story, but I just wanted more semblance of what I'm actually doing. The whole abstract thing combined with the frustration in the end just didn't work for me. I would have preferred that they sort of break out of the whole trial, and this is again just me. Break out of the whole trial and error dynamic. That just didn't do it for me. I wish it would have mixed it up in another type of gameplay format, and I still love the style and everything, but
Well, to be fair though, Chi, to be fair, and I've had this discussion with other people, and maybe you'll disagree. I didn't really think it was trial and error. I know a lot of people feel that way, but my personal feeling, and just speaking for myself here, was that if you really took the time to look before you did anything, I feel the vast majority of puzzles you could get through without dying if you took the time to really examine them. So to me, it didn't really feel like trial and error. Like it wasn't like try and die. It was like try something, I made a slight error in what my thesis was. I'm going to go back and change it. Okay, I made it. So I mean, obviously that's not the reaction by everyone, but to me, to call it a try and die is kind of doing the game a disservice, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any other words to describe it. For me, it was more a question. My brain just at some point doesn't know the answer, and what else are you gonna do but just try anything, you know? And I'm trying, I'm not trying to just jump into everything head first. Yeah, I am trying to go through the process that you're describing, Brad. It just didn't happen for me, unfortunately. And again, I don't know what to make of that as a critic, because it is a very subjective experience, but it is what it is, Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to review. I'm glad I didn't have to review this one.
Yeah, I mean, people are, they try to solve the puzzles and then die in the process. So
yeah,
I mean, try and die is a fairly, and I'm not even counting that as a negative, but I mean, try and die feels like a fairly apt description to me.
And I wasn't trying to, and I didn't mean it as a negative in the end. I just, like I said, I would have just preferred a different dynamic. That's all.
Yeah, because I mean, that's exactly what you're doing. It's like you are trying to solve it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. But I mean, if you take it in that literal of a sense, I mean, that could apply to any game. I mean, I think the connotation with that phrase is that you don't know what you're supposed to do, so you try anything and you just die. Whereas in regard to this particular game, I think that that's not true. I think you do know what to do, or they give you enough clues to know what to do. You simply don't pick up on them. And I mean, and the reason I bring this up even is a response to all those people, not anybody here on this particular podcast, but people who were knocking the game for like, oh, this game sucks so bad because you just die like a million times and it's so frustrating. And to me, it's like, well, you didn't take the time to look and see what you're doing. So why call it a try and die when you're not even trying,
Yeah, I think it's, again, it's like you mentioned earlier, that some people just expect it to be a platformer and you continue to move to the right and you make jumps, and the hardest puzzle will be you have to figure out how to make 2 jumps or something like that. And it's also, I think, an interesting testament, again, to, older gamers and younger gamers and how gaming difficulty has changed, because this game's a little more like a throwback to the 8-bit era where everything was difficult and things weren't no game held your hand the whole way through it and stuff like that. I think a lot of games now, you've got all these tutorials and all this shit that basically walks you through the game experience, and this game doesn't. It fucking puts you in its world, and the solutions are there, and you just have to slow down and think about it, and it's there. But
oh my god! I'm so glad you said that, because I was hearing people saying they were pissed off that there was no tutorial, and I'm like, what fucking tutorial do you need? There's like action and jump. It's too fucking.
There is a tutorial. It's in the option menu.
Yeah, I mean, the game has 2 buttons, so
yeah. I mean, people were getting out of hand because there wasn't like a walkthrough level, and it was like, give me a motherfucking break, dude.
Show me
seriously.
Like the walkthrough level is the first puzzle. That's your walkthrough level.
Yeah. And I mean, I like that. I mean, that reminds me of being a kid with my Nintendo, sitting in a room trying to figure out fucking how to get through the dungeons in Zelda, laying bombs everywhere, looking for secret passages and that. There was no tutorial how to do that. You just fucking did it. That was thinking, So yeah. So like, how do we get to now? It's like, there's no tutorial in this game. It didn't tell me what to do. Well,
but you know what the issue for me also, Mike, it's like they made a game entirely about that whole like, let's lay bombs everywhere. In some ways, it's like the whole game. That's the whole game, and I totally hear you, Brad. I'm not trying to say it's a complete exercise in frustration, but in a lot of ways, that's like the most thing that it's not that that's what the game's all about, but that's the thing that stands out the most in some ways, and that's okay. Again,
it's not for everybody. I mean, not everybody's brain works the same way, and we don't all get enjoyment from the same, kinds of challenges and such. But I would be really curious to see what the age breakdown would be, because a lot of the people that I noticed who didn't like it were definitely younger. I mean, like in their early 20s. And it's not like we're dinosaurs or anything, but like Mike said, I mean, having grown up through an era where there were no such things as tutorials, there were no walkthroughs, there were no.
Lucky the instruction manual made sense.
Oh, seriously.
This is the thing that doesn't make sense for me, because I'm like totally with you, Mike. I'm from the same generation, and if you listen to a lot of things I say throughout the podcast, there's an underlying subtext that I want games to be harder.
Yeah.
And here this game is, but so it's just I'm in a very strange place with this.
And
this game.
The best thing about this game for me was that it's fucking hard, but it's fair. So I mean, it's like
Totally,
cheap.
totally.
It's not cheap hard. There's a consistency to the puzzles and the mechanics of it that work the whole way through. It never pulls out. The only time you could maybe say that the game throws something at you that's cheap is like when Brad mentioned when you have to click the signs when you jump. That first time that comes up, it's not totally intuitive that that's what you're supposed to do, that you can do that. But the rest of the way through, the game has its own internal logic, and it follows it, and it's consistent the whole way through. And it's not like Ninja Gaiden on the NES where it was just fucking hard because it was cheap. And
Or
wanted to
Ninja
just
Gaiden on the
punish
Xbox,
you.
for that matter.
Yeah.
Or any Ninja Gaiden for that matter.
Yeah. It's not just hard because it's cheap. It's hard because it's like really, consistent, but the puzzles are just challenging, so that's good.
Yeah, there is a very, 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 very fine line between challenge and cheapness, and there aren't very many games that can actually walk that tightrope successfully, and I think Limbo is definitely one of them.
I would agree with that.
We should wrap this up. I will ask, do we want to cheapen the discussion by talking about price at all?
I don't think
We
that's
should.
necessary.
We should. I think we should.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because
I'll go with that.
it's an issue for people, and I think we shouldn't duck the question.
This is a game that has been criticized for its length versus price. About 3 hours for $15. I guess I should say, those of you, how many of you had a download code for it? How many of you?
I had a
purchased
code.
it. I paid the $15 for it.
Do you feel that it was worth your money, Richard?
Yes, I do, and I've actually never really bought into the cost as it relates to length. I don't necessarily believe that a longer game equals it's worth more money.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Limbo, and I consider that experience worth $15. So, I mean, a game could be 1 hour and cost $15, and if I like it, then that's worth the money. So, I mean, if I'd have paid $15 for a 12-hour game that sucks ass, I'd be pissed off. So, no, I mean, I don't think it's a problem at all.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I agree. Like Richard, I don't equate length and money at the same thing. I think Flower is one of the shortest games, and yet I'd gladly pay $20, if not $30, for that game.
I want games to be shorter, so.
Right.
No, I agree. I mean, I actually had a code from the developer, so I didn't have to pay for my copy. But after I had been through the game, I liked it so much that I went through and I bought my wife a copy because I wanted them to get my money to be able to profit from that. Because I mean, the quality of it is outstanding. I mean, anybody who says this isn't a quality game doesn't know what they're talking about. Regardless of whether they personally like it or they don't like it. And I mean, I think we need to support things like this. I mean, it's obviously not $1 million budget game. It doesn't push 85 bazillion polygons and photographic real models. I mean, we have to, if we as critics really like what it's doing, we like the approach, we like the risks that we're taking, then we need to reward it. And $15 is not really a lot in comparison to a lot of these $60
Yeah, look, you could have
carbon
spent
copy
60
sequels.
You could have spent $60 on Crackdown 2.
Oh God! Don't even get me started on Crackdown 2. And I'm also of the feeling that, like you guys, length doesn't equal better. I'm all for shorter games that get in and get out. And I think, like Tim said, I mean, it's questionable whether Limbo could have even been shorter, and maybe it would have been punchier for that. I mean, it's a good question to ask. But I think it's definitely worth the $15 because I'm a supporter of things that are of quality of this nature. And I mean, this is like one of the best games I've played all year. So I paid the $15. I would pay it again. And I would recommend anybody that it's worth $15 for sure.
I generally don't get anxious when the price of a game is under $20. I don't really consider length. But at the same time, I look back at last year's Summer of Arcade, and I look to the first game of 2009's Summer of Arcade, Splosion Man, which was $10 and a good 12-hour experience. And I can't help but think, you know what? Maybe 15 is a little much when I compare it to that. The problem is you can't be comparing games that way in terms of price because the price in general on games decreases over time. At some point, Limbo will be on sale for $10. It may even be on sale for $5, and at that price, it's a complete steal. But I do get where people are coming from when they start comparing the titles, particularly between the downloadable titles. I can't entirely blame them, because
But isn't that Microsoft who kind of sets those prices?
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't Microsoft force a lot of developers to charge $15 no matter what?
Well, I think they can choose between the 10 or 15 or 20 mark. I think, right? I mean,
I don't know for sure about what Microsoft's guidelines about it, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard the stories about people who wanted to release free stuff and Microsoft won't let them.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
But I don't think the average consumer cares who's setting the price, do they?
Right.
well, I mean,
agree.
I just think you assign the blame where it should be.
Yeah. Don't blame the
No, I think that's fair.
blame Microsoft. I mean, blame Microsoft is fun. I mean, just do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, and specifically though, like Mike said, I mean, every single game in the Summer of Arcade is $15. I mean, I think that if you ask those developers, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them were like, "Well, we'd like to go lower." I mean, if you look at the indie channel, a lot of developers had started out doing $10, $5, $8, and when that didn't fly, everybody went to $1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think people are aware that, the economy is a factor, people's personal budget is a factor, value is a factor. I mean, I think in this particular case, Microsoft has a hand in having it be $15.
Does anyone know how long the demo is to this game? Because I just went ahead and bought the game myself also, and I didn't actually try the demo.
It's lengthy. You play up until you are wrapped up or just before you get wrapped up by the spider. So 20.
Oh, really? That's a pretty big
Right.
chunk.
25 minutes, maybe?
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what I say? I think this game in particular, try the demo. You like it, it's worth the money. You don't like it, and in my case, I probably wouldn't have ponied up for 15 in this case. Not that I don't think it's not worth it, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. But I think the demo will tell you everything you need to know whether it's worth the money or not in this case.
I think that's very true. That's a good point.
It's better than Death Spank.
That's for sure.
There you go.
I'm nodding my head in agreement right now, even though I've never played that game.
Yeah. You could argue, and I hate to be so cynical, you could argue that the best part of Limbo is in the demo. That it's all downhill from there. You could make that argument.
You could make that argument.
So,
yeah, you really could.
Yeah.
So
I mean, some of the best, not all of the best part, but most of it.
A lot of it, yeah. A lot of it.
So
they're going to make us edit that out. They're going to kill sales.
I know, right? That's an interesting point to end on, but hey, what are you going to do?
Well, I do think we should end on that, as we are just about out of time. I need to get out of the studio. Another show is coming in. So before we wrap things up, Brad, I think you have a special announcement. Something really cool is happening at PAX this year.
Yeah, absolutely. GameCritics.com has teamed up with Gladriel Games to host a cheesecake social, which will be taking place at the Cheesecake Factory restaurant, which is directly across the street from the Washington State Trade and Convention Center where PAX is being held. It's going to be September 3rd from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The first 50 people through the door will receive a prize pack thanks to Gladriel Games. The first couple cheesecakes are going to be on us, and I will be there. Chris Poirier from Gladriel is going to be there, and Gabe Purcell from Gladriel is going to be there. There's also going to be a few other people worth talking to, and hopefully it'll be a really good time, a chance for all of us who follow each other on Twitter and have never met in person to get together at PAX, talk games, eat some food, and just, kind of have one big happy in-person family. So once again, it's at the Cheesecake Factory, September 3rd, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Seating is going to be really, really limited. I would suggest you get there early as possible. And once again, first 50 people through the door do get a free special super secret prize.
Will you be signing autographed photos?
$5 a piece, but yes.
Well, of course you're going to charge. I just assumed you'd be charging.
Ain't nothing free. Come on.
Let's wrap things up. Any general goodbye comments? Richard, as the guest, I will give you an opportunity to address the audience on any topic you like.
If you haven't bought Aquaria yet, you should. It's a very quality title. It's worth your money.
Richard, are you going to mention Aquaria in every single appearance?
You're goddamn right I'm going to mention it every single appearance.
Mike Bracken, any final thoughts?
I'm just really excited that I'm going to get to play this new Castlevania now.
Yeah, that's the next title up.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know, if we're talking Summer of Arcade, did any of you try the Hydro Thunder demo?
No.
No.
Pass.
It's actually
No
pretty
interest.
good. I'm not going to buy it, but it's a meaty demo. There's multiplayer and single player. It plays really well. It's worth trying the demo, at least. It's a
all
quality title. Quality title. Yes, Castlevania coming next week. I imagine we'll be talking about that on the podcast once we've all had a chance to give it a spin. And 6-player co-op. Maybe we should all try it together.
Yeah.
As a family.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Gallaway. Final thoughts from you, sir.
My final thoughts are that currently I am playing way too many sequels. I've got a really big backlog of games I'm working through so that I can speak intelligently about the year 2010 by the time December rolls around, and I've played like 6 things in a row that were sequel crap, and I'm tired of it. Limbo was the one bright spot, and I'm really, really glad that I played it because it gave me a much-needed breath of fresh air, but in other words, it's looking like a dry year, folks.
Well, you've got StarCraft 2 to look forward to. I mean, once you
No.
finally get around to that.
Not going to get around to it.
Oh.
No PC games, right?
No PC games.
I'm actually excited
Or-
about StarCraft 2. Like to play it.
Join us, Mike. Join us
Yes.
on BattleNet.
I never really played the first one, so I'll be horrible, but I'm definitely interested.
That's
It doesn't matter. We'll just set it on to very easy and crush everything in our path. Like those very easy Zerg will not know what hit them.
Cool.
the beauty of StarCraft, and I'm so sorry to say this and divert the end of the show this way, but they have an entire bracket for crappy players. Like there's an entire tournament just for people who suck, and that is
Awesome.
where I'm going to be. Join me.
Yes.
Final thoughts from Chi Kong Lu, the man who started it all.
Sure. I'm looking forward to playing Darkstar 1 and the subsequent opportunity that to yet again talk about Wing Commander.
Count me in.
It's always Dynasty Warriors or Wing Commander.
Right. Hey, what about Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty?
Man, we made it through a whole show almost with no mention of Two Human.
Oh, and you just ruined it. Ah, you bastard.
And now it's time for my final thoughts.
Right on cue.
Well, there you go.
If Tim is allowed to mention Two Human as much, I am allowed to mention Aquaria, a game that is actually good.
Yes.
Oh, you're right.
Oh,
You're done.
it's on.
Eject. Eject.
Kevin Richards' last guest appearance.
All right, let's say goodbye, folks. To the audience, leave your feedback at GameCritics.com. If you want to support the show, the best way to do it is tell your friends, get them tweeting, get them blogging. We would appreciate it so much. And also, remember the show is perfect for playing in the background while you're making love. So for the entire GameCritics.com family, thank you so much for listening. Good night, and bon chance.
Sorry.
Good night and bon chance.
Best close ever.
Oh my
That's
god.
an epic win for the best close ever, I think.